So you said you're going to put in place the most vigorous vetting system in place now. Do you think James Murdoch would not go through this new vetting system?
You can have your fun at Sky News. We've got 100,000 members. I've got 1 million followers on TikTok. Dame Andrea Jenkyns has just joined us. She's our candidate for Greater Lincolnshire. You've had your fun. I'm off for lunch. Thank you.
A dark day for Britain. Yet again, the authorities and the deep state lied to us. The Office for National Statistics revised its former record high net migration figures up by 300,000. That means in just 1 year, the population of our country, which is already bursting, went up 906,000, with 1.2 million folk being allowed in, including 127,000 Indians to study and 116,000 Indians to work. Meanwhile, the invasion of our southern border continues every day on an unrelenting basis. Spending on illegals also reached a record £5.38 billion, up 36%. I'm furious. I'm sure you're furious. This cannot go on. As Alison Pearson wrote on X, utterly disgraceful. 1 million immigrants let in last year to a country where you can't see a GP or a dentist. You wait 2 years for routine surgery. Midwife services are dangerously poor, and hundreds of hotels contain undocumented young males. In a pointless press conference this afternoon, which I'm not even going to bother showing you, I watched it so you don't have to, Slippery Starmer promised to bring the numbers down. But do you really believe him? No, me neither, because he refused to set any form of target. So where is the hope politically going to come from? Well, a bombshell new poll today makes that clear, with Find Out Now numbers showing a catastrophic drop for Labour. They're down 9 to 25%. But here's the key point of this poll. Nigel Farage's Reform UK up 8 to a record high of 22%. So while the Tories might be celebrating leading that poll, they really shouldn't be, because this immigration mess is down to them, and we know it. Nigel Farage knows that if he's able to start tempting a few real Conservatives to his insurgent movement, it won't be long before he is leading in the polls. And he made the first move today. It was a big one, with the wonderful former Education Minister Dame Andrea Jenkyns defecting from the Conservatives for whom she once sensationally unseated Ed Balls to run for Reform UK to become the first ever Greater Lincolnshire Mayor.
And she will run to be the newly created Mayor of Lincolnshire on May the 1st next year, and I believe she has every chance of winning. Dame Andrea, I hope you're here.
I have to admit, I feel a bit shaky in the back of the stage. Today, I've joined the party of the brave.
And I know this was a hard decision for Dame Andrea, but it was the right move.
Our once great country is at a crisis point. Labour's record speaks volumes already, you must agree. They have compromised our British territories, fleeced our farmers, and they're punishing our pensioners. Their policies are anti-business, anti-aspiration, and detrimental to all that we hold dear as a country. In the past 5 months, as we've seen, our British people have been locked up for expressing their opinions, while real criminals are being released early onto our streets. This is not the Britain that we deserve. But in times of crisis, we need strong leadership. We need those patriotic, brave hearts to be a true voice for the people, and Reform is that voice.
But the blockbuster announcement that Dame Andrea was defecting to Reform UK was overshadowed somewhat by a bombshell resignation from the party's highly respected former leader Ben Habib, who posted on X, "It is a sad day for me. I must sever my ties with Reform Needless to say, I shall remain a part of the movement I helped create and will go on fighting for a proud, sovereign, democratic, prosperous United Kingdom. So why has he done it? Well, he says that it is in part because of Richard Tice's comments about those who marched as part of Tommy Robinson's Uniting the Kingdom movement.
Nigel said that he was not in favour of mass deportations. Well, I'm firmly in favour of mass deportations. Anyone in this country who is here illegally must be detained and deported. Again, this is not semantics. I think Nigel in a subsequent interview said that there are problems, logistical problems in detaining and deporting so many people. I think there's over 1 million people in the United Kingdom illegally. But I concede that point readily. Of course, there are logistical issues, but that doesn't mean you don't do it. You begin doing it and you keep doing it until it's done, even if it takes a long time. That is the path on which the United Kingdom must set itself. And then I had a particular issue, I think, with Richard Tice saying that he described the gathering on the 20th of September in Whitehall in Parliament Square as that lot, eschewing, I think, the support of our movement, people, valid British citizens who no doubt voted Reform UK. He regarded them as unpalatable.
He also cast doubt on the strategy of attempting to poach Tories.
And I think there have been a few more defections from the Tory party to Reform, and all of these are trumpeted. But it's our people that should be trumpeted. It's the movement that we created that should be trumpeted, not the people joining from the Tory party who are part of a party that delivered the country into the peril in which we now find ourselves. So I can't understand this obsession with recruiting Tories. Sure, there are some good Tories that are worth recruiting. Suella Braverman, for example. But why would you want to open the party up wholesale to defections from the Conservative Party?
Now, where I disagree with Ben is that the right does have to unite. And there are many good, true Conservative people in the Tories, like Dame Andrea, like Suella Braverman, who he referred to, who should be welcomed with open arms by Reform UK as they hope to form a government. But as the obvious split in the party shows today, it's not going to be straightforward, because losing someone brilliant like Ben from your movement is a major loss. But now, the uncancelled interview. And the woman of the moment, Dame Andrea Jenkyns, joins me live. So Dame Andrea, look, we know they've been trying to get you for a long time. They tried to get you before the election. What changed your mind?
In all honesty, Dan, we're friends, aren't we? We know each other well. It was Kemi becoming leader. I've publicly said a number of times, if Kemi become leader, then I'm off. And I'm a person of my word. But I backed Pretty, and then when she came out of the contest, I backed Robert. And these are the true Conservatives who I think should be leading the Conservative Party. And look at Kemi; she didn't rip up the EU laws on the statute, which was her responsibility. And I was very saddened by that. And so I thought, look, it's time to go to a party what truly believes in Britain, which speaks common sense and actually says the things that people are thinking but don't often say.
Totally. I think it was a catastrophic decision.
By the way, I'm not driving.
No, exactly. There's no law breaking going on here. I presume you're heading home, right? Because you've been.
No. I'm doing media this evening, and setting off at 11 o'clock this evening. I won't get home till 3 o'clock in the morning. So then take my little one to school. So yeah, I've got a long night ahead.
Now, what does Boris Johnson think? You're such good mates, and he was obviously your biggest champion. He made you education minister. He made you a dame. Is he gutted about this?
No, I had a chance to speak to Boris yet. I really value both him and Carrie, and I, think a lot about both of them. As you know, I've publicly defended Boris because I truly believe in him right from the beginning, and I'm saddened that is still not Prime Minister. So I'm going to ring him, and yeah, I'm going to explain my decision to Boris and Carrie.
Have you heard from Kemi or any other senior figures in the party since your announcement today?
Not Kemi, no. Look, I have heard from some senior figures. It was mainly of sadness. I've had a couple of people in Yorkshire, former MPs, throw me out of WhatsApp groups, etc. But that's part and parcel, isn't it? And I mean, one of them used to be in the Lib Dem, so I don't know how they can sort of take that approach.
I guess the thing is that you tried so hard before the last election to engineer some sort of deal between the Conservative Party and Reform UK. You were even in number 10 with Rishi Sunak outlining a proposal. So presumably you feel like this was the party's mistake.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could see how the election was going to pan out, Dan. We could see that it's going to be a Labour massive majority. There's going to be apathy, low voter turnout, and Reform was going to split the Conservative centre-right vote. And so I tried to bring both parties together, even though I was Rishi's greatest critic. I could see it's more about the country, stopping a socialist government. And unfortunately, it didn't work. I've tried. But I got elected as a Conservative, and I went down as a Conservative, lost my seat as a Conservative. I think that was the right thing to do. It would have been easy to go to Reform before the election, but that's
you
not
would have
me.
won.
I was loyal to the party. I would have.
You would have won
yes,
your
I
seat.
believe. Yes.
In the
But it's
same
not
way
about
that
that
Lee
to me.
Anderson did. No, because
Yeah.
you felt you were elected as a Tory. The honourable thing was to
Yeah.
go down as a Tory, and then you were going to consider your
Yeah.
options. Do you genuinely believe in your heart, in your soul, that Nigel Farage is the next Prime Minister of the UK?
I mean, look, there's the people who politicians who genuinely connect. That's Boris, that's Nigel, that's Trump. They connect to the people. And Kemi doesn't connect to the people, So I think that, look, we've seen in America a tsunami, with the liberals who are trying to stop Trump. We saw Brexit here, Dan. And I just think that, the public's crying out for true common sense, honesty in politics. And another thing that persuaded me was, look how Reform stood up for that policewoman in Manchester. And, what happened in Manchester should not have happened. And those people wasn't arrested at the time, were they? They wasn't taken to trial, and they should have been. And good on Reform for actually doing an individual case to protect that policewoman, really. And so that was another thing. I want to be part of a movement of a party who sticks up for the general public. Because let's face it, I mean, your show's great, Dan, because it's about being uncancelled, and so many people are getting cancelled and have for so long. We've seen political criminals being arrested and paedophiles, ex-paedophiles being released. And what kind of country are we living in under Labour? And so, we've got to stand firm, we've got to speak out, and we've really got to do this with grit.
Well, there has to be a revolution, doesn't there? I don't think it's enough to say more of the same. Kemi Badenoch yesterday on immigration refused to set a target, refused to talk about mass deportations. What's the point? It's not good enough to do more of the same. Look at those immigration figures today. That was under the Conservative government where she served in the cabinet. 900,000 in a year.
Well, look, a year ago, Claire and I from the Conservative Post, we did the Leave the ECHR petition. And I mean, we got about 50,000 signatures to this. I mean, that was a year ago we were saying this. And this is the only way we're going to be able to control our borders, Dan. And we have got to do these things.
We do. We've got to be bold. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It has to be bold. I think the time for this sort of creeping establishment approach is wrong. And look at the petition. Look at the petition this week.
Yeah.
Hurtling towards 3
It's
million.
amazing.
It is, isn't it? And that's why I get that sense of revolution. I think there needs to be more conservative politicians who are brave, who make the move like you, because otherwise they're going to be swept away. And look, maybe it's 4 years, Andrea, but can you really see this government lasting 4 years?
They've got a super majority, though. That's the problem, Dan. I mean, this role in Lincolnshire, being their candidate for reform for Greater Lincolnshire, is an important role. It'd be sort of responsible if elected for, over 1 million people. And I think that can be a blueprint to, I mean, your guest who you've got on the show tonight, I love her. And, what I said on stage today was, I want to root out the woke, and because it creeps into governments of both colours. And I'd like to see a blueprint of what we can use, work with Nigel, work with Richard, to actually have this common sense politics again in Britain.
Indeed. And there is the petition, Andrea, 2.8 million. Look
Amazing.
at that. Hurtling towards 3 million. Have to ask you about Ben Habib's departure today. That's sad, isn't it? He's a great man.
Yeah, I mean, he always speaks common sense, but I don't know the background, to be honest, Dan. And it's hard to get drawn into something when you want a member of that party at that time. And I don't know what's gone on in the background. I mean, look, people fall out in parties. Look, I certainly did in my own party, didn't I? My old party, should I say, with the Conservatives. And when you've outspoken, these things happen. So it's hard to comment when I don't know what's gone on, in all honesty.
But you trust that Nigel is prepared to give up control of the party, is prepared to work with other people, is prepared to listen to senior figures like you, because that's what Ben Habib seemed to be suggesting, that he wasn't.
I mean, I wouldn't have crossed the floor if I didn't feel I could work in partnership with Nigel and Richard, Lincoln to mayoral seat. So, this is going to be an important election next year, as I said. And what's the alternative? We just have the two-party status quo, Dan, where, there's not much change, or we blow the door off.
Blow the door off. No, it has to happen. It has to happen. And look, Andrea, look at the stories that only Nigel, Richard, who's been brilliant, Rupert Lowe, Lee Anderson are prepared to talk about, and people like me in the independent media. The Southport massacre cover-up. We still don't know what happened. The only MPs who have raised it in Parliament in any significant way are Nigel, Richard Tice, and also Robert
Dan,
Jenner.
when I was on Newsnight, I got told that I was inciting violence for saying that questions need to be answered. And it's just crazy. I mean, look, also when I was an MP in Parliament, I held a debate on the true costs of illegal migration. I managed to get the debate. And only 5 MPs turned up, 4 Conservatives and, the DUP. So it speaks volumes that, it's too much this Westminster elite, Westminster bubble, that they're not living in the real world. And that's why parties like Reform, or the only party is Reform actually, that they gather momentum, because something has got to change, Dan.
It does. It does. Something big has to change, because otherwise this country is going to be destroyed. I really believe you've made the right decision. Are you going to be able to campaign full-time before the election?
I intend to, yes, definitely. I mean, look, I was a full-time candidate when I won against Ed Balls. I don't know if you saw in the speech, but I lived in all 3 areas of Greater Lincolnshire and went to school and college, university. I was the first Conservative councillor in Boston Northwest. I've been a director of 2 children's performing art academies across there. So I know the great county. I know the challenges. I've seen what they've done to fishermen in the port of Grimsby. I've seen what's happening to the farmers under Starmer. So we've got a lot of work to do, but the work starts immediately for me, Dan.
Well, Dame Andrea Jenkyns, I back you all the way. Congratulations. Big decision, but I really do think it's the right one. Thank you so much.
Thank
Dame
you.
Andrea Jenkyns.
Take care.
But first, I love the holidays. It's my favourite time of year in loads of ways. But I don't know about you. I'm already finding it pretty demanding, going to all the events, the dinners, shopping, looking for the gifts, planning the day itself. So at this time of year, I tend to burn out quicker than the last, which I'm sure has something to do with the fact that I'm in my 40s now, I'm getting older. This year, though, I don't plan for that to happen because while getting older is inevitable, feeling older isn't. As we get older, our body's ability to create energy declines, but recent scientific discoveries have found we can actually increase our energy levels in our cells by taking something called NMN. Now, NMN has been shown to increase energy and endurance, activate our body's ability to burn fat, enhance mental function and health, improve blood pressure, regulate blood sugar levels, and support many other health markets. Finding high-quality pure NMN is hard, so I use Verso. They conduct third-party testing for each batch produced to guarantee you get what you pay for. It contains the highest quality NMN and other research-backed ingredients that have been shown to increase energy levels and slow down the aging process. I've taken this for some time. I feel like a younger version of myself. So many improvements, actually. More energy, enhanced endurance, improved cognition, fat loss, better sleep. And if I do get a cold like I did last week, I recover so much faster. So click the link in the description on YouTube and Rumble or head on over to buy.ver.so and use the coupon code Outspoken at checkout to save 15% on your first order. I'll repeat that address for you. www.buy.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code Outspoken. But now, back to the show. Nigel Farage has just stormed out of an interview with Sly News. Now, he was being asked about one of Reform's MPs, a guy called James McMurdoch. I actually met him the other night. Really, really good guy. Now, in his past, this is 2 decades ago, James was convicted for some sort of physical altercation with his then partner. It's something he's spoken about. It's something that he deeply, deeply regrets. And he has served his time for it. Now, 20 years later, the mainstream media are trying to use what went on with James McMurdoch to somehow cancel the Reform Party. And what we'll see here in this interview with Sly News, Nigel had just had enough. So let's watch this.
Involves being honest, though. Are you not concerned that he lied about what he did?
Did he? He wasn't vetted. He wasn't vetted. James McMurdoch was one of those many candidates who wasn't vetted at all with the party. Look, I didn't know any of this when I took back over as leader.
So you said you're going to put in place the most vigorous vetting system in place now. Do you think James McMurdoch would not go through this new vetting system?
You can have your fun at Sky News. We've got 100,000 members. I've got 1 million followers on TikTok. Dame Andrea Jenkyns has just joined us. She's our candidate for Greater Lincolnshire. You've had your fun. I'm off for lunch. Thank you.
Charlotte, did Nigel do the right thing there?
I think there's a general problem which, you know, you and I are like totally in sync on. I mean, the mainstream media, it's true. They are just rubbish, and they don't grill people in the same way. So I do understand why journalists like Farage just get a bit exasperated with the whole thing. And I do think about this specific case, so there's got to be a sense of, the justice system is meant to be about rehabilitation and redemption ultimately. So it's sort of it's a question over that, isn't there?
That's the thing. It's very much like the left-wing media will only go after someone if they happen to be on the right for any form of personal proclivity. If it's someone on the left, let's just forget the really anti-Semitic comments that Diane Abbott made because she's now Mother of the House and we celebrate her. But this young guy, James McMurdoch, who made a youthful indiscretion 20 years ago, let's ask Nigel Farage about it infinitum. I think this is going to see the playbook that we see with Reform UK. The point that I would make, Charlotte, though, is that it doesn't work. Look at what the mainstream media tried to do in America with Donald Trump. They overplayed their hand. And I think they're going to do the same thing here with Farage.
Yeah, I think so. I do. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about Reform and Conservatives in terms. I mean, I think I'm like you in that I want the right to unite because I think they are going to eat into each other's vote. But I don't think I think there's going to be a really big problem soon for the mainstream media. Like the funds have been dwindling because people are cancelling their TV licenses. Sky doesn't have the same issue, I guess, because it's got the Murdoch backing. But I think one thing that worries me a bit about the BBC is they do have they've created channels so that they can cope without taxpayer funding. Well, direct taxpayer funding. They get money from the Arts and Humanities Research Council, for instance. We don't have any choice in paying for that tax. And they also get money from all sorts of other sources. I'm pretty sure Bill Gates is the funder of the BBC. So, whether we can actually get rid of them, I'm not sure.
No, indeed. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go wherever you are.